Hi everyone, this is meteorologist Joel Curtis with your Alaska Weather TV show. Starting out today, there's no warnings, watches, or advisories in effect for anywhere in Alaska today. We've got really quite a high pressure system affecting much of Alaska. Also, we have weather systems that are dominating the Bering Sea, especially on Thursday. Freeze thaw each night in the central interior. Starting out, we'll make some puddles and then we'll freeze them on up. And then finally, for mid-late April, we have a cooling trend, cooler than normal. So getting into it, first of all, we have that zone changes that we've been talking about here. It really affects the border between Anchorage and Fairbanks. And for details, please go to our website and check it out if you need further information. But this matchup is really going to help us issue your warnings better. So, starting out with our satellite imagery, there you can see a big weather system over by Shemya there, and not a whole lot of clouds over Alaska. A few higher clouds along the west coast or so in a stream of warm air, but otherwise a frontal system out in the Bering Sea, and it's moving on up and bringing a little bit warmer air into the northern Bering Sea with that system. So looking at our surface map for today, again, that visible satellite photo shows a lot of clear sky over Alaska. Very strong high pressure, 1041 north of Bering Strait. We also have 1044 Arctic high over northwestern Canada, and then that extends down to another high center in the Gulf of Alaska, 1035. And then we have a really weak system kicking out toward Vancouver Island there. And also we have that major system in the Bering Sea just off of Shemya, 992 millibars. Lots of warm air wrapped around it. And that warm air is moving up along the western coast all the way up to St. Lawrence Island and into the Bering Strait. For tonight's weather, that system weakens a little bit, just by a couple of millibars, but as other systems develop around it, the frontal system is very complex and was really hard to depict, but the main story is warm air over the eastern Bering Sea coming up and nipping the southwestern coast of Alaska, then the Alaska Peninsula, with some precipitation, mainly in the form of snow, but some areas are getting also rain with that system, and a 1032 millibar high out over the Gulf, where our main system, 1047 Arctic high pressure over northwestern Canada and 1042 northwest of Utiagavik. And then as we get into Wednesday, that high pressure still holds. Not a whole lot of change with that. A few more clouds we might expect over the central interior. Also getting that freeze thaw. And then we get the warm advection coming up through St. Lawrence Island and down into Bristol Bay. And that's got precipitation out ahead of it. And the main frontal system now is just making its way up to the Alaska Peninsula, but get a load of that little wave that's formed south of the main low at 994 millibars. That low is our next comer on Thursday, which develops very rapidly to 978 millibars and lots of wind out ahead of that system. So we expect that places like Nunivak Island, all of the open capes and such should see quite a bit of wind, probably in the 40s, but you might see a few gusts in the 50s or so. Plenty of precipitation wrapped up in that system as it comes up. Still, mainland Alaska is in pretty good shape. That high has retreated down in the Gulf to 1028 millibars, and it's a little bit further south, and 1046 north of Utiagavik. So looking at our low temperatures Wednesday morning in the 20s for the Panhandle, also in the 20s for most of South Central, but 7 for Gulkana. And then as we look in the afternoon, temperatures well into the 40s for almost everywhere. generally the mid-40s, but certainly above freezing. We get that freeze-thaw cycle we were talking about. And then for our low temperatures, Thursday morning, again in the 20s all across the board, except for 15 for the Copper River Basin area. And then finally, on Thursday afternoon, you can see temperatures generally in the 40s. So you get a 39 there at Yakutat or so, but almost getting into the upper 40s for a lot of locations. So we're going to keep an eye on that warming. And then for our low temperatures Wednesday morning along the north slope, negative single digits and almost into the negative teens as we get across the north slope. As you get further south, temperatures in the teens and 20s, and 19 for Fairbanks and 26 for Nome. And then for Wednesday afternoon, single digit highs, but in the plus column for the north slope. And then we get into the 20s and 30s and even 50 for Fairbanks. So warming up quite a bit in the day and make those puddles and then freeze them up again at night. For our low temperatures Thursday morning, again, negative teens all along the north slope. And as soon as you cross the Brooks Range, you're going to get in the positive teens and even some readings in the 20s, 21 for Fairbanks. And then for as we get to Thursday afternoon, you can see that now we're heating up almost 15 along the northwest coast there. And then 34 for Kotzebue, 38 for Nome, and a high of 43 on Thursday for Fairbanks. And now looking forward toward the southwest, our low temperatures Wednesday morning, lots of readings right around freezing or so, a few in the mid-20s as you get further north. And then as you go out the peninsula, everything's above freezing really, except for the Pribilofs at 30 degrees. And then for Wednesday afternoon, we can see a lot of highs in the 40s and even 51 for McGrath. And then as we go out along the peninsula again, temperatures in the 40s for those highs. And then on Thursday morning, lows again in the 30s for almost everywhere, and then 29 for the Pribilofs. And then for our high temperatures Thursday afternoon, you can see that we're getting almost into the almost to 50 in a few locations, but generally in the 40s and some of the 30s along the coast, 36 for the Pribilofs and 40s as we go out the chain. So now let's take a look at the longer range forecast for 6 to 10 days out, April 18th or April 22nd, and we're showing below normal temperatures for most of the state, including the central interior and the south central, as well as the southeast Alaska, but just a little bit of warm temperature indicated for the Bethel and Dillingham areas, above normal temperatures there and about normal as you go out the chain and for the Pribilofs. And then looking at our 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, we've got really drier than normal for a large portion of the state, particularly as you get toward the northwest, a pretty darn good chance of real dry conditions there. And then as you get over towards southeast Alaska, it starts to be normal, and then down by Ketchikan or so, just a slight chance of that being above normal precipitation down there. And of course, in southeast Alaska, this is your dry season. So then, taking a look at our 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, April 20th to April 26th, again, colder than normal for a big segment of the state, including a high probability there west of Fairbanks. And then as you go out toward the Alaska Peninsula and toward the Pribilofs out in the Bering Sea, about normal temperatures or so. But look at southeast, they're still forecasting a slight chance that temperatures are going to be below normal temperatures. And then finally, looking at our 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, April 20th to April 26th, we can see that dry area still persists over much of the mainland portion of the state, including an area west of Fairbanks, between Fairbanks and Kotzebue or so. Pretty good chance that it's going to stay dry out there. In the meantime, though, take a look at the Panhandle. That's predicted now to be above normal precipitation. So stay safe out there. Thanks for tuning in.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi, everyone, and now for your aviation weather. Starting out with the flying weather Wednesday morning, we have extensive IFR over the Bering Sea, down from St. Lawrence Island, all across the southwest coast, down to the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and the Pribilofs. We also have some marginal VFR from Kotzebue Sound and the northern Seward Peninsula across the Brooks Range, as well as a little bit in northern South Central and the far western Aleutians. For Wednesday afternoon, that marginal VFR persists over the Brooks Range, as well as a little bit into Kotzebue Sound, also the Seward Peninsula. Then we have extensive IFR for across the Bering Sea again, from St. Lawrence Island down to the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Pribilofs and far western Aleutians, and a little bit of marginal VFR for the central and eastern Aleutians. For Thursday morning, we have, again, some marginal VFR into the Brooks Range, also from Norton Sound and Kotzebue Sound. IFR extensive over the Bering Sea from St. Lawrence Island, again down to the Alaska Peninsula, also a little bit into southwestern Alaska, particularly the Lake Clark area, as well as the central and eastern Aleutians. For Thursday afternoon, again, marginal VFR into the Brooks Range from Kotzebue Sound, also the northern Seward Peninsula, as well as into the central interior a little bit. Also, southern Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and marginal VFR now has worked its way into the Gulf, including Prince William Sound. The IFR persists over most of the Bering Sea, down through southwestern Alaska, and also through down to the Alaska Peninsula. For our pass conditions on Wednesday, Anatovik, marginal VFR, Adigan Pass, marginal VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, both VFR, Rainy Pass, VFR, Windy Pass, marginal VFR becoming VFR, Isabel Pass, VFR, for Mentasta Pass, VFR, Tanita Pass, VFR, Portage Pass, VFR, Chilkoot and White Pass, VFR, with windy conditions and some moderate turbulence expected. For our freezing levels on Wednesday morning, at the surface of the northern two-thirds of the state, but then we have some warm air in that southerly flow aloft that's reached up into southwestern Alaska up to 2,000 to 4,000 feet or so, and then also south of the Alaska Peninsula. For our icing on Wednesday, we have an extensive area of icing all across the Bering Sea, up through the Bering Strait. As in the northern sections, isolated moderate between 1,000 and 9,000 feet. We have an area of considerable moderate from St. Lawrence Island down across Nunivak Island and down to the Alaska Peninsula between 6,000 and 15,000 feet. And then as you go out the Aleutians, it'll be between 2,000 and 12,000 feet for isolated moderate. Also a little bit south of Haida Gwaii between 4,000 and 8,000 feet. For our jet stream on Wednesday, we've got a southerly branch that comes up over the Alaska Peninsula into southwestern Alaska, about over Nunivak Island, 65 to 75 knots. The main branch of the jet staying south of the Aleutian Islands. And then we have some offshore flow, first of all, northwesterlies across the north slope, and then picks up to northerlies and northeasterlies all the way up to 65 knots as you come across southeast Alaska. For our 9,000-foot winds on Wednesday, we've got, again, those southerlies around that system out in the Bering Sea, up to about 30 knots over the southwest, picks up to about 50 knots over just off of Nunivak Island, and about 40 knots over the Alaska Peninsula. And again, we have that offshore flow over the Panhandle, about 25 knots or so at 9,000 feet. For our 3,000-foot winds in the Wainwright area, we've got about southeasterlies at about 30 knots or so, picking up to about 35 knots southerlies as we get over southwestern Alaska, and then about 40 knots as you get out over the Bering Sea, all circulating around a high in the Gulf of Alaska, 25 knots south of Kodiak Island. And then for our turbulence on Wednesday, first of all, we've got a couple areas in southeast, surface of 5,000 feet, northern Lynn Canal area, down to the mountains east of Juneau, and as well as the mountainous areas over in the Hyder area, again, surface of 5,000 feet. We also have an area of considerable moderate turbulence stretching from the Alaska Peninsula up through Bristow Bay and on up into the eastern sections of Norton Sound, as well as St. Lawrence Island, and that layer will be surface to 4,000 feet. And then for the central Aleutians, we've got surface to 3,000 feet. So fly safe out there and be sure and file a flight plan. Be safe. Thank you.
Hello, I'm a GOES-R series weather satellite orbiting 22,000 miles above Earth. I can see a lot of cool stuff from up here, and I take pictures of it with my spiffy camera that has 16 different settings. I have such good eyesight, I can see clouds, snow, smoke, smog, and ash, so I can warn you about dangerous conditions and help you avoid them. When storms are brewing, I watch them closely and help with hurricane, tornado, and flood warnings to help keep you safe. And my lightning mapper tracks lightning strikes way up in the sky, even through dark, dense clouds. I also help with search and rescue missions. I listen for distress signals from emergency beacons and tell search and rescue teams just where to find people who need help. But even when I'm keeping a close eye on Earth, I'm monitoring weather out here in space, too. I watch the sun for big bursts of energy, which send waves of radiation toward Earth that can affect power grids, block communication with planes, cause errors in GPS, and damage satellites. Space weather is also very dangerous for astronauts working outside the International Space Station. I warn them so they can get inside where they'll be safe. So the next time you watch a weather report or check your phone for the forecast, remember, that's me. So look to the sky and wave. I'll be here. Whoa! Things are looking pretty bad down there. But don't worry. I'm going to give weather forecasters a heads up and help you stay safe. I'm a GOZAR series weather satellite, and one of my jobs is to keep an eye on Earth's weather as I orbit above. But I'm 22,000 miles above Earth. How does your local weather forecaster know what I see all the way up here? First, I have to figure out what's going on. I point my special camera at the Earth and take pictures of the clouds I see below. My pictures show where the clouds are, but I also take lots of other notes about the clouds. For example, how high they reach into the atmosphere, how much rain they might cause, and when a severe storm may be forming. But I can't keep all of this information to myself. I have to share it with weather forecasters down on Earth. A big antenna is waiting for my call. Since I'm a satellite, I send my pictures and notes in a computer language of ones and zeros. Luckily, the antenna speaks my language. Computers connected to the antenna organize my notes and combine all of the pictures and cloud information and translate them into weather maps. They send a version of the maps back up to me. I'll hold on to these for later. Another copy of the maps is split into smaller pieces. This helps the maps move faster from one place to another. The map pieces are then sent for processing before being sent back up in the sky to a communication satellite. From there, the maps are picked up by antennas at the National Weather Service forecast offices in each region. There are more than 100 offices. I also take the maps that I received and send them out to companies that specialize in making the maps more colorful and better for viewing on TVs and computers. The colorful maps and the maps from the forecast offices then go to your local weather forecaster. The forecaster combines the information from these maps with lots of other information, like model forecast data and radar data, to make predictions about the upcoming weather in your area. And that's how I help you find out if bad weather is going to ruin your afternoon plans. You're welcome. Soon it will be my time to shine. In outer space. I'm the GOES-R satellite. That stands for Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite. And the R stands for my order in this series of weather satellites. Like my older siblings before me, I'll do a lot for watching weather, but I'm pretty special because I have a lot of new gadgets. I'm originally from Colorado, but my journey to space has a few stops along the way. I'll be shipped in a very special satellite shipping container to Kennedy Space Center. Moving me around is not easy. I'm over 18 feet wide and weigh 6,000 pounds. And then things get really exciting. I get loaded onto an Atlas V541 launch vehicle. A big rocket! Woo! After Atlas and I blast off together, my compartment separates from the launch vehicle and I continue to climb higher and higher. Then I break away completely and unfurl my solar panel and antenna. After that, I have to use my thrusters to get into just the right position, 22,000 miles above the ground and traveling 1.9 miles per second to keep up with Earth's rotation. And then I can officially start my job along with my fellow GOES sisters, where I take advanced pictures for more accurate weather forecasts, map lightning in real time, and improve the monitoring of the sun's activity. It's going to be so awesome! I can't wait!
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, and now for your marine forecast. Starting out with today's sea ice edge, we've got some retreat from the south. St. Paul, though, in the Pribilofs is still iced over. And with some southeasterlies coming up, we expect more melting and some retreat of the ice toward the northwest. So for the marine forecast for southeast Alaska, starting on Wednesday, got some inside waters, 15 to 25 knots, a few gusts to 40 in Lynn Canal, seas up to 5 feet, and then on the outside, ranging 10 to 20 knots and seas up to 6 feet. For Thursday, more of the same on the inside, 15 to 25 knots, seas 5 feet up in Lynn Canal, and then generally northerlies on the outside waters, anywhere from variable at 5 on up to 15 knots out of the north, and seas up to about 5 feet. For south central waters, starting out, we've got rotation around that high offshore, generally wind direction out of the south or so, 20 to 10 knots, and seas on the outside up to 6 feet. And then on the inside of Cook Inlet, 10 to 20 knots, and seas up to 5 feet down by Kennedy Entrance. And then for Thursday, we can see that the wind is ramping up just a little bit down south off of Kodiak Island up to the southerlies 20 knots and seas up to 5 feet. But generally light winds to the east of there, 5 to 15 knots and seas up to 5 feet. And then for the inlet, 10 to 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet down by Kennedy Entrance. For the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds starting to ramp up on Wednesday on the Pacific side, 15 to 25 knots, seas up to 11 feet. And on the Bering Sea side, 25 to 30 knots and seas up to 7 feet. And then really ramps up Thursday as that major system comes up. On the Pacific side, we've got 20 ranging up to 40 knots down off of Sand Point, seas up to 14 feet down there. And then as you get onto the Bering Sea side, 40 to 45 knots, seas up to 13 feet, and you'll start seeing some gusts on those ocean capes, probably around 55 knots or so. And then for Wednesday's marine forecast, for the Aleutians, we've got Generally southerlies, around 25 knots or so, seas to 7 feet on the Bering Sea side, and then all the way up to 12 feet on the Pacific side. And then for Thursday, we've now coming around and got a westerly component in all the winds. Looks like the main wind will be 45 knots off of Alaska and 14 feet on the Bering Sea side, and then 15 feet on the Pacific side, up to 17 feet with the westerly swell working in south of Atka. And then for the West Coast on Wednesday, wind around 25 to 30 knots, 15 knots up in Norton Sound or so. Seas up to 8 feet down by the Pribilofs. And then for Thursday, we've got ramping up in those southeasterlies again, approaching storm force with 45 knots, seas up to 10 feet and then 15 feet off the Pribilofs there. And again, those ocean capes, you're going to start to see some real gusts on Thursday. And then on for the Arctic coast on Wednesday, we've got generally light winds on the north slope, 10 to 15 knots or so. As you get down toward the Bering Strait, though, 20 to 25 knots. And then for Thursday, we've got 15 to 25 knots along the north slope and 20 to 30 knots along the west coast. So for tonight's weather, 996 millibar low out in the Bering Sea. Lots of warm air out in front of it. A little bit of precipitation out in front, just touching the west coast or so. And then we've got this Arctic high pressure system all the way up to 1047 millibars over northwestern Canada or so. And then Wednesday, we've got the low down to 994 millibars. And then on Thursday, that deep, deep low, 978 millibars lows, and lots of wind to go along with that. And then we also have a 1046 high over along the north slope. So keep a weather eye out and stay safe out there. Thanks for tuning in.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.